Welcome back, I'm Kim Bailey. He's Jamie Wadley. I nearly said something else, didn't I? But she's not here anymore. And today we are talking with Ted Santos from the US. Let me introduce you to Ted. Ted is not your typical business strategist. He's a leadership disruptor who challenges the status quo and trains and develops CEOs, executives, and entrepreneurs to create problems instead of solving them to fuel breakthrough growth. As the creator of the disruptive leadership model, Ted equips leaders to master chaos, engineer transformation, and scale the impossible without breaking their businesses or themselves. With a background in turning struggling companies into market leaders, Ted's unconventional strategies have helped businesses achieve what once seemed unimaginable, including doubling productivity in months and breakthrough growth ceilings. So welcome, Ted. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me. My pleasure. And I know I'll be joining you on Tuesday soon enough.
There you go.
Still on Monday.
Still on Monday. This is a discussion we have. But what we're finding over the years is that I have to be very specific about the time. And often I'll send the time in the invite. I'll send the time in US time because I've already worked out what it will be for here. That we can talk here and we just get it right for everybody to be here at the right time. As always, we sent Ted some questions, and I think that as a way of introducing his philosophy and his approach to business, we might ask the first one, which is a big question, a big umbrella. We can talk out the repercussions of his answer once we've heard what he's got to say. The first question was that we seem to shelter under the umbrella statement that nobody likes change. Is that true in your experience?
I would say that is one of those myths that has been part of the human paradigm for a long time. And it is, I'm looking for another example where we believe, it's kind of like you can't run the mile in under 4 minutes. And that's just life, buddy. And there's nothing you can do about it because it's not humanly possible. So when we say change is hard, it's just like that. As long as we say that's the way it is, we find all kinds of proof and evidence, and we work diligently to prove what we believe is actually correct. So, as a human being, every cell in our body changes every 7 years. So we're designed for change. We don't generally wear the same clothes every day. If you did, people would have conversations about you at the water cooler at work if you wore the same clothes. Unless you're like Einstein. I think he had 7 suits and they were all the same exact color and style, but he wasn't wearing the same suit. He said, I had more important things to think about than what to wear. So people change. And I was speaking to you all about how I lived in Latin America and I just went from country to country, different culture, mostly always Spanish, but I stayed with Mayan Indians. They spoke Mopan Mayan language, and they also spoke English. There are so many things that we do that requires us to change, to make changes, but yet we say, I can't do it. Change is hard, and we find all kinds of ways to stay where we are until someone disrupts us. So if we look at the Sony Walkman. Sony was doing well with the Walkman, and for some reason they didn't look at the MP3 player. I know it would have affected their manufacturing and what the costs were for machinery and all the kinds of changes they would have to make, except Apple did it and disrupted Sony. And what did Sony do? They did exactly what they should have done in the first place. They had to make their own version of an MP3 player. So that's another great example of how we'll say, oh, change is hard. I can't do it. My people are not ready. The economy is not right. All these reasons you'll hear from leaders that say change is just not the right time. But then when your competitor disrupts you, now you have to play catch up and you have to make those changes anyway, except now you're behind instead of a market leader.
I saw in the research that we did, you're talking about we're conditioned to think about we do something good, better, and better again, rather than do it differently. And I think that's probably something we'd like to explore, because as we looked at that video of you talking, all sorts of things occurred to me, and I know that will to the listeners as well, because we definitely do think about, all right, I've got this issue, this problem that we need to solve in our team, and if we work harder, maybe we'll come up with the solution. If there's a better way of doing it that we don't know about, should we find out, or are we wasting our time looking for something that might not be there when we should be working harder, working better, working longer at this particular issue?
Yes. So I would say that's another one of those human paradigms that is a trap. So I'd say it's a trap to say change is hard, and that's a trap people get into and it's hard to get out of because it self-perpetuates itself. And then the other one is part of our paradigm is the more, better, different. Well, what we're doing is not working. So we'll just do more of what we're doing, and then that will work. That will get us to a breakthrough. And if that doesn't work, we'll just do it better. And if that doesn't work, we'll do something different. But in my work, it's about creating intentional breakthroughs, not the breakthrough where you look back in hindsight and say, oh, they must have done this, this, and this, right place, right time, ahead of themselves, and all those things. It's, I think it was Edward Deming. He said something like, if you don't know what questions to ask, you discover nothing. So we kind of keep asking the same questions to get more, better, or different, but we don't transform our mindsets in the way we see the world so that we ask questions that have nothing to do with what we've asked in the past. So transformation, mindsets that can intentionally create breakthroughs. And essentially, I'm talking about a paradigm, creating paradigm shifts. So we usually think in terms of if what we're doing, and we go back to Sony, the Walkman is selling well. We did something different by putting a disc. So now we have a Walkman and a Discman. You can put a cassette in it, and you can put a compact disc in it. And we did it differently. But what Steve Jobs did was say, put 1,000 songs onto a miniature listening device. And it has to be so small, it fits into your pocket and you don't even know it's there. That's a paradigm shift. And Sony did not take that on. They let someone outside their industry do it.
No, I was just going to say how often we see that sort of problem. And when you mentioned Sony, I immediately thought of Kodak and the digital camera, and they were at the top of their game when they decided not to go digital because of disrupting the business model. And we've seen that so recently with Google, who essentially built their business on innovation, scared to change their model because of their search income and their search business. So they were very scared to take up AI, and here they are trying to play catch up now.
Yeah, great example.
It is
That's
a barrier
another
in itself, the difference. So it's very interesting.
Well, it's really disrupting the way you think.
Exactly.
If you're going to ask questions that you've never asked, you're going to have to disrupt the way you see yourself, you see the world. It will disrupt the way you see your vendors, your suppliers, because you may need things from your vendors that you've never needed in the past.
Yeah, it's scary.
We've got leaders who are open to these suggestions. How do they reinforce themselves with some strength so that they can ask those questions where they don't know the answers? Because we are expected as leaders to know all the answers, to be able to lead by example, and all of those things that we get fed through our careers. So how do we reinforce the feeling that it's okay for them to ask questions that they don't know the answers for?
Okay, so I understand your question. How do we reinforce in the culture of our organization that it's okay to ask? My first response was going to be is you don't reinforce. I have no intention of sounding irresponsible because running a business is a big responsibility. It's important, and being profitable is also part of that responsibility. So it's not about spending money airy-fairy and throwing everything out the window. But there are some things that will be essential to unlearn that has gotten you to where you are today. And where breakthroughs, the domain where you find breakthroughs. How about I do an exercise with the two of you and we can kind of uncover that. So I'm asking both of you, give me an example of something you know, and you know it. What's something that you know?
I Oh,
Wow,
no.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you have to know something. You're here, right? It's
Well,
not a trick
let me
question.
start. I
Not a
think
trick question.
the thing that I know, I think is that while technology changes, people remain the same.
Something even simpler. Something you know.
I know I should be wearing glasses.
You should. Okay, that's you should be wearing glasses. Is it fair to say
I have them here.
uh, all three of us know English? We live in countries where English is right.
Yes.
You know English, right? I'm willing to bet the farm that you can do simple mathematics. 1 + 1 is 2, right? 5 + 5 is 10.
Yes.
Are those good
Okay.
examples of
Yeah,
things you know?
I'm handy. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. Now give me an example of something you don't know, and you don't know it.
I don't know how to code.
Perfect. That's great. And you don't know it.
Oh,
That's
yes.
perfect. Yeah.
Well, that was going to be mine,
Jane,
but I'll say I don't know how to speak Mandarin.
perfect. Man, we've got some brain transmission going. That's the word I was thinking, Mandarin. Exactly. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, except if you wanted to code and you wanted to speak Mandarin, there are places you can go. There are resources in the world where you can go to learn to code and you can go learn to speak Mandarin, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Now, once again, not a trick question. Give me an example of something you don't know you don't know.
That's a tough one.
In all of the research that I did, I was trying to think of that exact thing, and it just nothing. My brain just shuts down. If you don't know it, you don't know it. How can you know what the question is?
So that becomes a challenge, reinforcing, ask those questions. There are things you don't know, right? So
Yes.
even asking the question leaves people speechless. Like, where do you go from here, right? And at the same time, that's where breakthroughs are found, in that domain of things you didn't know you didn't know. There are some things that we won't even allow ourselves to think. And maybe that kind of happened here. When I asked, give me an example of something you know, you didn't even come up with something. That was an easy question, right? I know how to tie my shoes. I can speak English. I know how to put my clothes on. I can drive a car. These are all simple things,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
But it seemed like, I don't know how it occurred for you, but it wasn't an easy question. Wasn't so easy.
No.
So imagine looking to intentionally create breakthroughs, and it exists in a domain of things you didn't know. So what questions do you ask? And when you combine that with what we've already said, there's a belief. There's no proof, but there's a belief that change is hard, and there's also the paradigm of you do more, better, or different if something's not working. And we live in a world where we're educated to give the right answer. And if I don't know it, someone give me the answer. Tell me where I can find it. You want to know how to code? You go, there are places you can go, you can get the answer, and you can run back in your corner and continue with work because I got the answer. So that's the paradigm we're given. And then someone says, go create a breakthrough.
It's incredibly difficult to, when you put it in those terms, because when you started to say it, I was thinking even with things like the X Prize, that's someone else introducing the problem for you to go and find an answer for. But coming up with that, what are the unknowns? Yeah, it's
Right.
fog of war, if I can use an outdated term. But it's incredibly difficult exercise. Appreciate more now that I'm speaking with you.
There we will leave our first part of our discussion with Ted Santos. Join us for part 2, where we will keep exploring this idea of creating chaos and change in our organisations. I'm Kim Bailey, he's Jamie Wadley. We'll be talking with Ted Santos, and this is Inside Exec.